May 9, 2024. Japan's Defense Ministry releases a report which it makes available to the United States, claiming that its Maritime Self-Defense Force detected the presence of several Chinese ships near Yokosuka Naval Base. Those ships included a Type 815G named Tianquanjing, a Chinese naval surveillance vessel, in addition to a pair of warships, the Type 054A Changzhou and the Type 056 Luan. All were traveling together, following a route that took them through the Philippine Sea into the East China Sea, and far too close for comfort to a naval base that Japan and the United States share. Japan had to respond. And it did so by sending out ships of its own to intercept the Chinese Navy, marking one of several bold moves that Japan has been taking in recent years to slow down Beijing's maritime ambitions. What are those moves? That's the question we'll explore in this video as we examine what Japan is doing to stop the Chinese Navy from dominating the Indo-Pacific. First, let's come back to our story of the interception. Newsweek reports that the 3 Chinese ships were likely on their way back to China after completing naval exercises in the Indo-Pacific. Each could represent a threat to Japan. Take the Type 815G as an example. Built by Hudong Shipyard, the ship was first deployed into the South China Sea in 2010 and is 130 feet long by about 23 feet wide. It's highlighted by a main tower, above which lies facilities for navigation and, crucially, observation. The ship is capable of traveling up to 21 knots, which is about the same speed as a large landing ship, and can stay at sea for about 50 days before needing to return to port. At its rear lies a helicopter landing position that's suitable for either a Ka-28 or Z-19 carrier helicopter. Beyond that, little is known about the ship, besides the fact that it exists to gather intelligence. It houses an array of radar domes, which are visible from its deck and contain antennas capable of analyzing communications and missile telemetry signals. In other words, it's the perfect ship for China to use if it wants to get close to a naval base so it can intercept classified communication. Then there are the 2 warships that accompanied the spying vessel. The Type 054A is just under 440 feet long and is capable of traveling at speeds up to 28 knots. It features a flight deck, which includes a hangar for a single helicopter, as well as several radar and sonar units. But perhaps the most notable thing about it is the sheer volume of munitions it carries. Sea Forces Online reports that the ship is home to a HAKJ-16 vertical launching system containing 32 cells, which can be loaded with China's HQ-16 medium-range anti-air missiles or its Yu-8 torpedoes. Add to that 8 box launchers capable of firing YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, a 76mm gun, and 4 30mm close-in weapon systems or CIWS, and you get a ship that packs a serious punch. A punch strong enough to protect a spy ship while it's gathering information. The Type 056 is a little less powerful. It's a 291-foot-long ship capable of traveling at 25 knots, and it contains a flight deck for a Z-9 helicopter. The ship has an 8-cell launcher from which it can fire short-range HQ-10 anti-air missiles, along with a pair of 2-cell tube launchers that fire the same YJ-83 anti-ship missiles found on the Type 054A. Add to that a 76mm gun, a pair of triple torpedo tubes, and 2 30mm CIWS, and you got a ship that packs less firepower than the Type 054A, but can still be a major threat when used in a supporting role. All 3 of these ships passed within Japan's territorial waters, moving through its southwestern islands in May 2024. Japan's response was almost immediate. Newsweek reports that it ran an interception operation to essentially guide the Chinese ships away from the base and back into international waters. These included the JS Kurashima, which is a Sugashima-class minesweeper, which was deployed because it's capable of keeping pace with the Type 815G. To tackle China's more powerful ships, Japan sent out the JS Yamagiri, which is an Asagiri-class destroyer. Sea Forces says that the ship is somewhat equivalent to the Type 054A, at least in terms of size, as it measures about 450 feet long and is capable of moving at a top speed of 30 knots. Like the 054A, it has a flight deck and hangar that can house a helicopter, in this case the SH-60JK Seahawk, and it's loaded with an array of dangerous weapon systems. These include a pair of Mark 141 missile launchers, which fire RGM-84 harpoons, and a Mark 29 missile launcher equipped with 8 RIM-7 Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missiles. An Oto Malara 76mm gun offers a good counter to the Type 054A's own 76mm gun, with the Mark 16 launcher built into the ship also giving it anti-submarine capabilities. Finally, later models of the ship come equipped with a pair of Mark 15 Phalanx CIWS, a rapid-fire weapon that can rattle off up to 4,500 rounds per minute. A fair match for China's warships. And that ship was backed by a P-3C maritime patrol aircraft. Though technically considered an anti-submarine warfare craft, the P-3C is still equipped with AGM-65F Maverick and AGM-84K Slammer missiles, both more than capable of causing damage to surfaced ships. Add its AGM-84 Harpoon weapons, along with a collection of torpedoes, mines, rockets, and depth charges, and the plane gave Japan an aerial advantage should China's trio of ships choose to attack. Thankfully, no attack came. China's ships left Japan's water under the surveillance of Japan's 2 ships and aircraft, with a tense situation ultimately resolving itself somewhat peacefully. Except there's a problem. This incursion into Japanese waters was far from a one-off for the Chinese Navy. It was no mistake, and Japan's bold response was warranted because China has been pulling stunts like this for years, and these patrols into Japanese territory have only been intensifying in 2024. That's according to both Newsweek and the US Naval Institute, or USNI's, news website. In early April 2024, a month before the May interception, the USNI noted several instances of ships from China's People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, sailing through the waters between Japan and Taiwan. And it wasn't just ships. China has also been sending unmanned aerial vehicles and surveillance aircraft over the waters, as well as potentially allying with Russia to conduct surveillance. USNI even has a timeline. Between March 25th and March 27th, 2024, the PLAN destroyer CNS Chang'un accompanied a frigate named CMS Changzhou as they sailed within 93 miles of Miyako Island. That distance matters. According to international maritime law, a counter is allowed to claim an exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, extending up to 200 nautical miles beyond its coastline. Once that EEZ is established, the country has full jurisdiction over everything, living and non-living, within it, meaning it has full control over which ships can and can't sail through it. China coming within 93 miles of a Japanese island meant it was moving through Japanese territory without Japan's permission, and the PLAN kept on pushing its luck. Between March 27th and 28th, the ships proceeded to sail north, passing between Yonaguni Island and Taiwan, before moving to within 50 miles of Utsuri Island. Though officially owned by Japan, both China and Taiwan claim ownership of the island, with the PLAN's move likely being to intimidate Japan by showing that China is keeping an eye on the territory it believes it should own. Again, Japan shadowed the ships, sending out a DE-234 destroyer and several maritime patrol aircraft to keep an eye on China. While all of this was happening, March 25th also saw the Chinese Shupang-class survey ship Mao Yisheng move within 25 miles of Yonaguni Island, again meaning it had entered Japanese waters. Japan also tracked a Y-9 electronic surveillance aircraft, a WZ-7 unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, and journeys by the CNS Huainan destroyer, CNS Darking frigate, and a fleet oil tanker called CNS Kakajilyu, all of which sailed or flew into or over Japanese waters over the course of the week leading up to April 2nd, 2024. Add to that the Karelia, a Russian intelligence ship, which was spotted sailing 31 miles southwest of Oshakojima, and you have the constant breaking of maritime protocol by 2 countries that appear to be attempting to intimidate Japan. In other words, the Chinese ships that sailed near the southwestern islands were just the latest in a long line of PLAN ships that have been breaking maritime law by sailing too close to Japan. There's a clear pattern here, and it's one that's been on the rise since 2021. According to Newsweek, that year saw Japan's maritime self-defense forces intercept Chinese or Russian military vessels in its territorial waters 67 times. The following year, that number more than doubled, rising to 132. China and Russia kept their incursions stable in 2023, though they rose by 1 to lead to 133 interceptions. And it's clear from USNI's breakdown of a single week between March and April 2024 that the PLAN has no plans to slow down. CNN builds upon this. In May 2024, it reported that Chinese Coast Guard ships have spent a record-breaking 158 consecutive days sailing in the waters that surround several Japanese islands in the East China Sea. These islands, which Japan calls senkakus, are uninhabited but carry the potential to become catalysts for rising tensions between the 2 countries. Interestingly, China isn't breaking any maritime laws in this instance. Its ships are sailing in the contiguous zone around these islands, which extend another 12 nautical miles from Japan's official territorial waters. Sailing in those zones isn't illegal, even for military ships. However, maintaining a continued presence within them, as China has been doing for over 150 days, is considered an unnecessary provocation. Of course, China will claim otherwise. As with many other scraps of Japanese territory, such as the previously mentioned Utsuri Island, China believes these uninhabited islands should be its territory. Regardless, China is sending a message to Japan with all of these naval incursions. It's watching, perhaps even testing its boundaries or attempting to incite it into a military response beyond merely shadowing China's ships until they leave Japanese waters. But so far, Japan has played a clever game of sending its ships out to greet those operated by the PLAN without actively attacking them. The message is clear. The PLAN may be trying to watch or intimidate Japan in their own waters, but they can show them that they have the naval might to fight back if needed. All of which brings us to another question. What else is Japan doing to stop the Chinese Navy? We already know it's sending out ships to directly respond to PLAN incursions into its own territory. That sees Japan engaging in something of a tit-for-tat battle with China, where it's attempting to one-up its aggressive neighbor with its ships. If China sends a destroyer into Japanese waters, Japan will send one out to greet it, often with an aerial accompaniment to send a message to China that it has the advantage in its own territory. But beyond these responses, Japan is taking active steps to bolster its naval strength, so that it's ready to fight China if the need calls for it. Take its growing alliance with a pair of other naval powers as an example. In August 2023, the US Department of Defense published a press release in which it claimed to be strengthening its defensive ties with Japan and South Korea. This trilateral agreement had been a long time in the making. Both Japan and South Korea were bilateral allies to the US before, with the three-way agreement marking a new way in which the nations could work together. As part of the agreement, the three nations promised to enhance their defensive collaboration, which includes carrying out multi-domain military exercises with one another. Information sharing is also a key part of the agreement, which is great for Japan as it benefits from its partners' knowledge about China, North Korea, and general activities within the Indo-Pacific. This trilateral agreement has already started to bear fruit for Japan. It started to run regular training operations with its new partners. One of the most recent, conducted in April 2024, saw it take part in a two-way exercise led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Japan sent a warship to the drill, with South Korea sending guided missile destroyers to accompany the American ships. Crucially, the drill took place in disputed waters. All spent 2 days working together in the East China Sea. The drills were followed by meetings between the three countries and leaders of the Philippines, which is another country that is wary of increasing Chinese aggression and territorial claims within its waters. Japan's partnership with the US runs even deeper. In March 2024, Al Jazeera published a report quoting Japanese government spokesman Yoshimasa Hayashi's claims that Japan and the US are discussing ways to increase collaboration and integration between their militaries. Speaking to reporters, he said, "Japan and the United States have been discussing ways to strengthen cooperations in command and control in order to enhance interoperability and readiness." These comments came during the build-up to a summit attended by US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. According to Al Jazeera, that summit involved plans to enact the biggest upgrade to the security alliance Japan shares with the United States since the two nations signed a mutual defense treaty in 1960. Why does all of this matter? It shows that Japan is taking China's threatening actions in and around its territorial waters seriously. So seriously, in fact, that it's looking to do anything it can to bolster its own naval threat to show China that Japan isn't afraid of what it's doing. These collaborative decisions are important because the simple fact is that Japan's navy likely wouldn't defeat China in a straight-up fight. According to Global Firepower, which ranks 145 military countries annually using its Power Index scoring system, Japan has the 21st strongest navy in the world based on pure fleet strength. That amounts to 155 naval assets, including 23 submarines, 36 destroyers, and 22 mine warfare vessels. However, China has Japan beaten in every respect. Global Firepower says that it has the world's second strongest navy, due to the PLAN controlling 730 vessels. That strength is debatable. You could argue that the US has a stronger navy due to its ships displacing more than twice the water of China's vessels, but the asset count alone is enough to put China well ahead of Japan. China has 61 submarines to Japan's 23, as well as 13 more destroyers, far larger fleets of frigates and corvettes, and 14 more mine warfare vessels. China also has a pair of aircraft carriers, ideal for bringing a large portion of its 1,207 fighter aircraft into a naval war scenario. Simply put, Japan isn't as strong as China. So the cooperative agreements it's forming with other nations, particularly the US and South Korea, allow it to supplement its naval strength so it can present more of a threat to China. Beijing knows that launching an attack on Japan means it's also attacking South Korea and the US, as well as further upsetting the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. It won't make the first move. That may be why it's trying to provoke Japan by assailing so many ships in Japan's territorial waters. Japan's response is intelligent and measured. Rather than attacking, it's sending ships out to observe all while working on building partnerships in the background that will help it to stand up for itself if China ever does attack. It's a similar collective defense strategy as that employed by NATO, showcasing how Japan can strengthen through collaboration. Still, that doesn't mean Japan is willing to let its navy grind to a standstill because it believes it will be defended by stronger countries if China attacks. It's also boosting its naval strength, so it can put up a far better fight if it's left to face China alone. For instance, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force has started commissioning more new ships. In April 2022, USNI News reported that Japan's navy had commissioned the JS Kumano, which is the first in what will become a fleet of the country's new Mogami-class multi-role frigates. These frigates are 436 feet long and capable of traveling at speeds in excess of 30 knots. In many ways, it's similar to the Asagiri-class destroyer Japan sent out to meet China's trio of ships in May. The Mogami class also has a flight deck and hangar capable of landing a Mitsubishi SH-60K helicopter. Plus, its weapons loadout is impressive. The highlights is the ship's 16-cell Mark 41 vertical launching system, which fires Type 03 surface-to-air missiles. An Mk145 127mm gun means it has a stronger gun than either of the two Chinese warships that encroached on Japanese territory in May. Plus, it's equipped with a pair of missile launchers that fire Type 17 SSM-2 anti-ship missiles, another great defense against China's ships. Add torpedo tubes which fire Type 12 torpedoes and a Mark 15 Mod 31 CRAM CIWS, and you get an impressive frigate that's as capable of fighting aerial threats as it is seaborne ones. It can also handle submarines. USNI News says the Mogami class is also equipped with towed array sonar and variable depth sonar, which make it suitable for anti-submarine missions. It can even lay mines if needed. But perhaps even more importantly, you get a ship that's representative of Japan's desire to invest in its navy. More news of strengthening came in 2023, courtesy of China Military. Though the source is obviously China-centric, suggesting there may be a hint of bias in its reporting, it still notes that Japan's navy is looking to strengthen further by building several unmanned combat weapons, including amphibious armored vehicles and multi-purpose unmanned vessels. Japan is also supposedly developing new anti-torpedo and ship-to-air missiles, likely intending to load both into its new multi-role frigates, as well as working on new intelligence-gathering aircraft. Again, this is a marked turnaround for a nation that typically focuses its military rhetoric on defense ahead of offense. For instance, an intelligence-gathering aircraft will be far more useful flying over Chinese waters to gather information than it would be patrolling Japan's coast. It's also a turnaround that's backed by Japan breaking its record in terms of its military budget. In August 2023, Reuters reported that Japan's defense ministry had requested 7.7 trillion yen, approximately $52.7 billion, for its 2024 defense budget. The plan is part of a wider effort to boost defense spending up to 2% of Japan's GDP between now and 2027, with Reuters noting that it's also clearly a direct response to Chinese and North Korean aggression. The 2024 budget proposal alone would represent a 13% increase on the 2023 budget, with almost a trillion yen being added. The Japanese Navy was heavily considered in this budget request. About 900 billion yen would go towards weapons and ammunition purchases, with a focus on air defense missiles that can be deployed from ships. Another 600 billion yen will be dedicated to bolstering Japan's defenses along its Southwest Island chains, which are the very chains that China's trio of ships sailed among in May 2024. The budget request was granted. In fact, as USNI News reports, Japan's defense ministry exceeded its target for 2024 as it was granted 7.95 trillion yen, approximately $55.9 billion, toward the end of December 2023. Japan's navy is already putting that money to good use. Naval News reports that $2.59 billion of that budget will go toward the construction of a pair of Aegis System-equipped vessels, or ASEVs, which the country aims to make the cornerstone of its missile defense system. Each of these ships will be 623 feet long and capable of displacing 12,000 tons of water. That makes the ASEV 1.7 times larger than the new Flight 3 Arleigh Burke-class missile destroyer commissioned by the US Navy. The ships will require 240 crew members to operate and will be loaded with a Mark 45 127mm gun, SM-6 missiles, and a weapon system capable of firing American Tomahawk cruise missiles. An anti-drone laser system will also be retrofitted into the new ships starting in 2032. So where does all of this leave Japan in terms of its conflict with the Chinese Navy? Simply put, the country's navy is taking a series of bold moves to react to increasing Chinese aggression. Every Chinese incursion into its territorial waters is being met with Japanese vessels that are capable of fighting the Chinese ships if they're pushed beyond their observational roles. As Japan asserts its control over its territory, it's also working alongside the United States and South Korea to enhance its naval defenses. All three countries are running semi-regular drills, occasionally in disputed waters, that show Japan is as capable of threatening China as China is of trying to intimidate Japan. Finally, there are clear signs that Japan is strengthening its navy. Its military budget, though still only around a fifth of China's $236.1 billion 2024 budget, has reached record-breaking levels. Plus, Japan is commissioning new and dangerous ships, all of which are intended to bolster its defenses while making its navy a more respectable attacking force. China certainly won't be running scared in the wake of these moves. It will continue to antagonize and provoke with its incursions into Japanese waters. However, it will also take note of the fact that Japan is responding bravely by strengthening and showing that it won't be cowed by Chinese aggression. Tensions will rise. Japan aims to be ready if those tensions boil over. Will all of this be enough for Japan's navy to overcome China's if war breaks out? Let us know what you think in the comments, both about Japan strengthening its navy and the increasing cooperation between it and the United States.